All right. What's going on, everybody? Happy 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 Monday. Is it Monday? It is Monday. Shit, there you go. It's Monday. Um so we're gonna have Dancy Dance. It's gonna be fun. Get excited for a big day of school things. All things school related. All right. So for those of you who are new, say that you're new, and then we will say hello back. If you are not new, then you can just say your name and we may read your name out loud. Hello, Peter. Hello, Mackenzie. Hello, David. Hello, Kevin. Hello, Jeff. Hello, Garrett. Hello, Efina. Interesting name. Rohan. Hello. Hello, Deb. What's up? Kiran. Fun, right? We can do this all day. All right. So today we're going to use the same tried and tested format of number one, we will review the leaderboard. Number two, I'll ask Curb Diggity Dog here if he has witnessed any new things that have come out recently in terms of technological advancements on the platform, new weapons per se to be used in the games duel and school rhyme. I feel like that should be a thing that we haven't used. School duels kind of sounds fun. School duels, and then from there I will give a little top of mind thing, and then we'll go into the most juicy, the juiciest, the organic, cage-free, vegan, dolphin safe questions that we have found. Hunky dory. All right, cool. Let's rock. So I'll go leaderboards, and Curb, do we have any news to release?
We have churn metrics in the dashboard.
Ooh. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't Okay, I'll go quick recap on leaderboard, little play by play. Then we'll go churn metrics, then we'll go top of mind, and then we'll go Q's and A's. All right, let's rock. Everybody game? Everyone game? All right. Well, if you're not game, then you should try a school duel. All right. So without further ado, it is October 21st. So we're 3 weeks into the games. And as everyone knows in the games, 3 weeks in actually means we are still about 10% of the way through the games, because those of you who are new, the end of the game's last 72 hours is when like half the fucking revenue goes through. So anyways, Max Person is leading the way right now with 88,000. Very impressive. What was unique about this game compared to other games in the past is that for only the month of October, previous gladiators, previous school community winners were allowed to recompete. So kind of exciting there. And this is kind of like in the Coliseum when they call back Maximus, when he's allowed back into or they call back Tiberius. I think that was the name of the guy with the bear face thing. Anyways, for those of you like Gladiator. That being said, other cool thing, I think I did mention this last time, but I think it's really cool, is that we expanded the leaderboard to 100, which I like that from like a gaming perspective, because you can see here, like, it's not hard to get on this board, guys, especially if you're new. Like, it's not difficult. And once you're on the board, if you're in the top 10, you get kind of retired, you win because you fly out, all that fun stuff. And so it's always fresh people who are joining the games who are in contention. So it's not like you're competing against people that are, with the exception of October, you're not competing against kind of like all the best or the biggest communities on here, because you can look at the all-time leaderboard to get an idea and be like, oh, wow, there are significantly larger communities than the games per se. But that being said, Max with 88, Keytron right on him at 77, and they are also competing for 100 grand in cash and/or a Cybertruck. All right, so that is the leaderboard. I'm not going to go through the rest of them. Do those at your own leisure. So let's talk about churn metrics. Curb, can you show everybody the churn metrics, and then we'll get into top of brain.
I can indeed. So if you go to your community, you click settings, the first thing you see is a dashboard. You'll see paid members, MRR, and the new feature is your churn percentage.
So what do I do with actually, I can explain this. All right. So if you're like, all right, well, what the hell do I do with the churn percentage, right? Like, why is that useful? Okay. So churn is a measure of the percentage of customers that leave from last month to the next month. And so it's actually completely independent of your sales velocity, meaning how many people you get in. And so let's say I start with 100 customers in my community. At the end of the month, I have 110 customers, but I signed up 20. So I have 10 that churned. So what is my churn? Well, the 20, it's a little, this is like the, when you're in grade school and they give you an extra piece of data that doesn't matter. The fact that you went from 100 to 110 is irrelevant. What is relevant is that you lost 10 members. And so the churn would be 10%. Now, what can we do with that 10% metric? I'll tell you, a lot. All right, so churn is, if we're in a recurring revenue business, which we are, understanding churn is one of the most important things. So let's say that the price, to keep 100 simple, the price is $100. All right, that's your membership price, $100. Okay. Now, if we have 10% churn, meaning 1 out of 10 people leave every month, then we can figure out what the average duration is by dividing 1 by the percentage churn. So 1 divided by 0.1 is 10, meaning 10 months. All right, so 10 months is the average duration. You can also take the price, $100, and divide it by churn, divided by 10%, and get your total revenue per customer. So if I had $100 per month and 10% churn, then my total revenue per customer would be $1,000. All right, now, why is this important? Well, if you run ads, for example, and you have 10% churn and you have a $100 price point, then it means you can spend $1,000 to quote break even. Now, would you want to do that? Probably not, because you run a for-profit and not a nonprofit business, right? And so the rule of thumb on this is 3 to 1. All right, is that you want to be above 3 to 1 LTV to CAC. Now, for most of you guys, your gross profit is equal to your revenue. And that's one of the nice things about school in general compared to, say, a business where I sell, I don't know, combs. All right, so here's a comb. If I were selling combs, I have my cost of my comb, I've got the cost of shipping, I've got the cost of warehousing. I have to put that thing into consideration with my pricing, right? But if you sell a digital product or media, then you really have no additional costs or very few additional costs per additional user. And so basically you can do back of napkin of revenue equals LTV. And that's fundamentally why I think a lot of people get confused, because some people talk about it as though all of the revenue equals what they make, versus companies like, if you're a physical product business, you have to know what your gross profit is, even if it's on a subscription, and you only have to work off that gross profit because that's what you grow your business off of. Okay, so back to how this is useful. So if I have $1,000 of LTV, true LTV, right? That's the gross profit that I'm making per customer over the lifetime, then I would probably spend up to about $300, call it roughly, to buy a customer. Now, here's the downside of this, is that if you spend $300 to get a $1,000 customer, you should do that every day of the week. Problem, you spent $300 and made $100 back in the first month. And at the end of that 30 days, you get your second payment. So in 30 days, you get 100, 100. So on the 31st day, right, you get your second 100 payment. So now you're 200 up off of 300 down. So you're still 100 in the hole. So you basically have to wait another month to get your 100 back, and now you're break even. So basically in like 61 days, you've broken even. And then every month after that, you're making money. But if you don't have the cash, and this is why some businesses start, like this is why software and things like that start venture-backed oftentimes, so that they can acquire customers at a loss, knowing or hoping that they can retain them over the long term and still make money. But if you are struggling to be more profitable upfront, this is where having all the things that we talk about normally, which is having annualized payments. So for example, if you do an annual and you know that people on average on monthly are worth $1,000, but you really, really need the cash in order to scale, then you could even be willing to, believe it or not, do it for 900. Even though you make less money, you make more money faster, which allows you to scale. Now, over time, if you start stacking up these other memberships, right, that keep going, over time, you can push your annual up so that it actually does equate to something longer or more expensive than what the LTV on monthly is, because at that point, you'll have started stacking up cash that you can then redeploy into the advertising so that you can continue to grow. All right. So hopefully any quick questions on churn. And by the way, if you do have churn questions, I will answer those proportionally more. I'll prioritize those, since today feels like a churn day, given the fact that that is the new release. And I think a lot of you guys wanted to know that. I'll bet you one of the next questions that will come up is like, what are the benchmarks around churn? Right now, I think Kirby released this. Can you pull it up on your screen while I talk about it? So I'm pretty sure right now, within school across the platform, the 20% mark is the kind of the mid. So at 20%, you're just average. Here we go. So average is 20. So that means, so let's translate this into months and money. Okay. So let's say that I have a $100 membership. Now, if you're like, I'm a $10 membership, how do I do it? Just do it with your number. All right. So I have a $100 membership. So 20% churn means 1 out of 5, 20% cancel every single month. So if 1 out of 5 cancel every month, month 1, 1 cancels, month 2, 1 cancels, month 3, 1 cancels, month 4, month 5, my average duration is going to be 5 months for customers in this business, meaning my LTV is $500, 100 times 5. Now, good at 10 to 19%. If I'm at 10%, then I'm going to get 10 months. And if I have 10 months, then 10 times my price is going to be my LTV. All right. And so if you're looking at this and being like, well, where do I go? The things that, if you're like, well, how do I solve this? Because this, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, is the key metric. This is what allows the school communities to grow the most, or rather, grow the biggest. They have conquered churn or done a much better job of it. And I can promise you personally, the most profitable of the communities are the ones with the lowest churn, because that means like you pay once to get the customer and they just keep paying you again and again and again and again and again. And ideally, we want to keep people forever, right? And so we actually put together the churn checklist. And not by we, I mean, I did lots of hours of days pulling it out of people. And then Kirby did the hard work of putting it into a checklist for everybody. But this is what we found has been the common traits of the school communities that had the lowest churn. And so if you're like, well, what do I need to do here? That's literally it. Those are all the things. And I can tell you this personally, that people have a desire for silver bullets when there are none. Is that almost fixing any function in a business is typically many small things and no one big thing. Because if it were one big thing, everyone would already do it or you'd already know it. And so it's just, and if you're like, man, that sounds like a lot of work. It's like, yeah, welcome to business. Like if it were easy, everyone would do it and everyone would be rich, but it's not. And so you just have to look at it, start at the first one, tick it off, move to the second one, and don't move to the second one until you finish the first. And so I think that this is actually a pretty good segue into what I wanted to talk about with you guys was is prioritization of really yourself. And so if we define strategy as prioritization of resources in a business, you as entrepreneurs, or we as entrepreneurs we have our time and our money and skills, if you want to include that, as the primary resources that we have at our disposal. And the people who grow the most or make the most money are the ones who get the best returns on the resources they invest. And so fundamentally, all of us are kind of like mini investors, and we allocate resources against the best returning opportunities. And so the reason that somebody else might have this, like, think about this as an opposite thought perspective. Every self-made millionaire and billionaire, by being self-made, started with the same number of hours, so that's guaranteed. And because self-made, same amount of money, which was basically none. And so the reason that they were able to move faster and move past you was because they got a better return on their investment. And so I would argue that the vast majority of you spend most of your resources doing shit that doesn't matter, or rather doing things that don't drive the highest return on your time. And so I'll give you a simple example. And I think this is something that just like humans do, is that they just kind of like, they grow their work and they don't grow their work. Like it takes constant, ruthless prioritization and re-looking at what you spend your time on to see, is this truly worth it? And so here's a real life example. So I was talking to my media team last week and they were saying it takes us a lot of time to, like one of the constraints was we got these nice cameras for our new studio that take big files, right? Big files. And so it takes like 20 hours sometimes for these files to upload. And after they're uploaded, they have to get like color graded, which for those of you guys who understand video, it's like a thing. I don't fucking know what it is, but apparently it's a thing that people do to video. And I think it takes a while. And so here's the thing is I said, okay, to what degree does the size of the file and how color graded our videos are determine how many views a video gets or the quality of the views? And the answer is, and I don't need to check the data for this, very little. And so, but the thing is that the team was still spending their time, call it 20% of their time, doing these two activities that basically created no output. Now, they felt like they were working, they felt like they were doing their job, but I was like, this is a complete waste of time. Now, just because other people in the industry do it doesn't mean we should or you should, because it's a poor return. We're not making Hollywood movies. And I'll also wager that I'll bet you the color grading also doesn't matter for the fucking movies, because the people watch them don't even know what color grading is. And so sometimes people just invent work. And I think realistically, many of you guys sometimes invent work too. And so what I want to walk you through is a process that I stole ruthlessly from Elon Musk that I think you may benefit from. Is that okay? I'm going to walk you through this process of how to allocate time, attention, and resources. Cool? Is that all right? Okay. So there's 5 steps to this. The first step is you question the requirement. Why are we doing this? And so if you can't, so I had a different example. Like this happens all the time, especially those of you who have teams, because people come in, they start getting on a salary, get an hourly wage, and they just have no idea what their actual job is. They have no idea how what they do results in anything with the business growth. And so I had a podcast manager ages ago who was like, hey, I think you should make shorter podcasts. And I said, why? And he said, because shorter podcasts get higher listen through rates. And I said, yeah, why do I care? Would it so? So? And so within the question, the requirements, there's 3 steps. One is, what does that mean? So when you color grade, or when you say you have to shorten this, what does that mean? How, like, what percentage? Is it like, what? Just define the term. Okay, great. Now, second is, how do you know that? So he would then say, well, if shorter podcasts get more listens. I say, okay, how do you know that? He's like, here's the stat. I say, cool. Now, third, why do I care? Now, if he can't relate, well, he's like, well, people who listen to the full podcast like the podcast more. And I'm like, how do you know that? And how does that translate to growth? And so if you can't explain to me how that translates to growth of the platform, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I shouldn't care. And so the thing is that I see so many of you, because I see you guys in the comments and I see your posts, spending all this time on shit that simply doesn't matter. You haven't boiled it down to what the inputs are that generate the most output. And if you're starting out, the big input is you need to let people know about your shit. You have to advertise, and you have to do so ruthlessly and consistently beyond the time of being bored. And we could talk about the rule of 300 in a second, because we can get into that. But I want to go through these 5. So number 1 is you question the requirement. Why are we doing this? The second is that you delete. Once you've questioned the requirements for everything, you just start hacking away. This is why Elon went into Twitter and was like, why do we need this? Why do we need this? Why do we need this? And then he was just like, gone, 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 right? You just deleted a bunch of stuff. And so for most of you, you can probably get away with deleting 90% of the work you're doing, because it's not the stuff that drives the business. So you delete. It's one of the best allocations of resources. Stop, and then get 100% of the resource back. And also, on top of that, eliminate switching costs. So if you have 3 things that you're doing, and let's say 2 of them are irrelevant, not only do you get all the time you get back from pulling from the time you were dedicated to that, but the time you spent switching between the tasks also is one of the biggest inefficiencies for human brains. So you get both efficiencies back. So the second thing is you delete. The third is you optimize. So this is where you're like, okay, now I've got, 6 things that I can clearly see generate output in the system. Right? Now this works the same way for sales as it does for editing, as it does for advertising. This is just how do you get more throughput in any system. All right? And so for us, I'll tell you this, we just went through this. I'm literally walking my media team through this. We looked at our output by channel. So some of you guys saw my tier ranking video, right? So really interesting is that 87% of my traffic, 87, comes from 2 platforms, Instagram and YouTube. But I have evenly distributed editors across all platforms. I also don't even create Instagram first platform, Instagram first content. I don't even make it. It's just repurposed. But as of today, Instagram actually generates more traffic to acquisition.com than my YouTube does. I just found this out. And so by double, it's a lot more. And so where I find this to be very interesting is that, okay, we know that Instagram gets us more than TikTok does. And now we're going to delete some stuff, deleted color grading, deleted whatever, right? But now at a platform level, let's optimize. So it's like optimizing activities, but then optimizing where we're doing it. So if you have the rule of 300, which I'll get to in a second, if you have the rule of 300 that you could do, well, you could do it on TikTok. You could do it on Instagram. You could do it on YouTube. You could do it on wherever, right? But you want to do it on the place you get the highest returns. And so we're going to be optimizing, allocating our resources to where we get the highest returns. And so if we've got 20 guys, instead of saying 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 across the platforms, we might put 8 on Instagram and 8 on YouTube, and then 1 on each of the other 4. And I might even forget about TikTok. TikTok doesn't do shit for me. I've got 1 million people, or almost 1 million people there. It does nothing. I got 1 opt-in in 4 days from TikTok, just to give you guys context. And I have probably a pretty decent sized TikTok. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It's mind melting. All right. Now let me juxtapose that with I got 187 off of Instagram. Same time period. 3 million, 1 million. That's what's crazy about this. That's what's crazy about this. 3 million, 1 million. And we had more posts on TikTok than we did on Instagram. Is this interesting for you guys? Okay. So step 1 is why we question the requirements. Why are we doing this to begin with? Second, we delete all the shit that doesn't matter. Third, we optimize resources against the things that we get the most bang for the buck. And you have to be okay. You have to be okay saying, yeah, I know I was doing that. I'm just going to stop. You can't feel this like, well, I've already done sunk cost fallacy. If the rules change or you get new data, the only thing worse than getting new data that tells you what you're doing is wrong, only thing worse than not knowing is getting it and still doing nothing about it. So number 4 is accelerate timelines. So this matters a lot with a team, but I'll still explain it to you. So for my team, for example, they sometimes have a tendency to say, a manager might say, hey, when can you get this done by? Right. And then someone might say, I can do it by next Monday. So what I've been trying to drill and practice with my, managers and directors is question that. So you're going to get it done. Today's Monday. So you're going to get it done by next Monday. Okay, cool. How long does it take in hours? It'll probably take me 3 hours. Okay. It's 2:30 now. Why can't you get it done by 5:30 today? Why not? Just tell me why not. I want to understand. Well, if they're like, well, I've got these other things, then you get to say none of these are more important than this. So I'll see you at 5:30, get this done. And at 5:30, I'll tell you what to do next. So this is number 4. Where was John? Accelerate. You accelerate the timelines. You pull up the timetable. And if you want to make things happen faster, by the way, big pro tip, there's 2 things that you can do. Number 1 is you move up deadlines. Number 2 is you increase comms. So you increase speed of communication. So if, for example, I meet weekly with somebody, I will guarantee you that if I meet with them daily, I will get more out of them. Period. Because what happens is people just default. They just default to how much time it's between the next. They're like, yeah, we see each other next Monday. I'll get it done by the same time next Monday. But it takes 3 hours. So it's like, cool. So it's 7 a.m. now, and I'll see you by noon. That's 5 hours. They have 2 hours to fuck around. And at noon, what do? I say, okay, this is the next thing. How long will that take you? 2 hours. Great. You have 3 hours to fuck around. I'll see you at 5. And guess what happened? In one day, we got 2 weeks worth of work done. And tomorrow, we start again. And so this is how, in real time, people can move 14 times faster than you. This is how it works, is you pull up the timelines. You keep pulling it forward and say, and the thing is if the person says, well, I've got this other stuff, it's up to you to say, 1, what's the priority of this list? Now, let's say they do have something that's more important, then fine. Then it's like, cool, don't worry about that. Do the first priority thing. But if there's other stuff, it's like, well, I have to do this. It's not as important to the business, but something's going to break if I don't do it. Then it's up to you to say, hey, let me clear the path. Like your job, if you're managing, I know some of you guys are starting out, but like giving you a little bit of glimpse into the future. And if you're managing yourself, you have to be able to say, and I'll tell you what, guys, when I wanted to fix one of our departments, I jumped in. I made a podcast about this, but I wanted to fix one of our departments. It's a different department. And it took me like 2 hours to dive into why everything was fucked. And this department basically did nothing for like weeks. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I hopped on the meetings, like my head was going to explode because I was like, I don't understand what the fuck's going on here. And so I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And I own the company. Like, you certainly have no idea what's going on, right? Like, you don't even have a larger picture at stake here, right? And so I itemized the problems as 3 big problems. And I said, and guess what we're going to do? We're not going to talk about problem 2 and 3 until number 1 is done. I don't want to hear about anything that's not problem number 1. And guess what? We got problem number 1 fixed in 3 days. It was a big problem. Problem fixed in 3 days. And I was like, great. Now we will work on problem number 2. And I don't want to hear about problem 3 until problem number 2 is fixed. And we did that. And that took us 3 days. And then once problem number 2 was fixed, they said, great. Now we can do problem number 3. And so it's like, you just have to be able to say no to shit. It's just not important. And it might be important, but it's not as important. And like the number 1 job of the CEO and the entrepreneur fundamentally is prioritization. That is strategy, is prioritization of resources. And when you have so few, you actually have to be even more sparing than you are when you're advanced. And this is why I think so few people move out of the beginner stage. They just can't fucking do anything. They can't figure it out because they try to figure everything in. You just have to be like, I have to set up my fucking about page. If the about page isn't set up, I'm not going to get customers. Okay. Until my about page is set up, I am going to do nothing else. Once my about page is set up, then I'm going to spend all my time driving people to my fucking about page. Once people are driving to the about page, whatever the problem is, if it's a conversion thing, then I will keep driving people to the about page, and then I will flip the VSL and make a better version of the VSL. And then I will keep driving people to the about page. And over time, you will start to make money. And then when you make money, then you want to start outsourcing the pieces that you have to do on a consistent basis so that you can do the things that you don't have to do on a consistent basis so you can build the future. So step 5 is automate, which I kind of jumped the gun there, right? Which is automate can either be somebody else does it for you, or you can actually automate the task if it's something that you can use robots to do, right? Software, AI, whatever the fuck, right? And so the big process for optimizing a system is number 1, question why we're doing everything. Question everything. Number 2, delete everything that doesn't matter. Number 3, optimize and reallocate resources according to the thing that gets you the most bang for buck. 4, accelerate timelines. Do it faster, pull it forward. Ask, why can't you? What would it take? Those types of questions. What would it take to get it done in 5 hours instead of 5 days? What would it take? What's the constraint? How can I relieve this? Is there anything that's more important? And then finally, automate. You either give it to somebody else or you have a machine do it. And you can apply this thinking to any system, whether it's video editing, advertising, sales scripts, VSLs. This is how it works. Okay. So for those of you who are new, that's what my top of mind looks like. All right. So please, everybody, please advertise. Please stop doing all the stuff that doesn't matter. What's a VSL, Elton? It's a video sales letter. It's the video that you put on your about page that just tells people what it's about. All right. Let's rock into A's and Q's.
Quick Q&A and then answered the 6 that are pretty good.
Star says this was so greatness. So thank you, Star. I feel like a star now, given your comment. All right. We're going Q's and A's on the thing?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to answered. Is that the one?
Yep.
All right. So just so you guys know, by the way, if you're like, I would like my answer or my question to get selected, the way that you do that, by the way, is by asking a good question. And double points if it's relevant to the topic that we talked about that day, which today is churn, will be, I'll say churn and priorities. I'll use those as my 2 buckets that we can do this in. And I would say we normally get like probably 10, maybe 15 good ones in. You probably know better than me. I don't keep track as much. Okay. So Kathy Deneuer, okay. I've got a free Facebook group and I've run paid mastermind group and a private Facebook group. Fine. I really like the experience, the school community experience, and I feel like I can go straight to paid community. Cool. I'm well known in my niche already. Is there any downside based on experience to starting out with a paid school community? I already have an audience in my niche. No, it really depends on the price point though. So it'll still work like a checkout page, to be clear. And so like if you want to go lower ticket and you have more traffic, then yeah, you can just go direct because you probably don't have the bandwidth to like take phone calls and things like that. But if you're going to go higher ticket, then it makes more sense to, in my opinion, you can have the price advertised if you want there. I don't know what the price point is. Like, let's assume it's a 5K, thing. At least that's, if you're processing through school, that's the limit. Then at that point, phone sale to the 5K would be the play. I would say just about anybody here who's doing over $200 a month, you probably want to have a phone involved. And so I think Sam did some massive calculation on this, but basically, if you go free group to onboarding call to sell into paid, it's 6 times more efficient. That's the rough. I'm believing Sam's model there. That feels right intuitively to me. It's 6 times more efficient than going straight to the paid community. And I'm not sure if he factored in price point there. I feel like he would, but either way, even if price was factored in, it's still 6 times the return. The issue is if you have a crazy amount of traffic, then the amount of sales calls that would need to be taken would probably be very difficult operationally. In which case, either just go low price, high volume, and then ascend from that group. Basically, it acts as a qualified filter, or free phone call paid. Those tend to be the 2 models. Hopefully that helped you out, Kathy. Okay. Tashar. Been implementing the Rule 300. Oh yeah, I'll talk about that right now for everybody who's new. Okay. I've been implementing the Rule 300 and probably more on Instagram for 2 weeks, but I haven't seen any results or money-wise. Interesting. Any tips you picked up from 100? So, Kirby, I'll let you answer this too, but I'll give you guys the rundown in terms of what the Rule 300 is. So basically, for people who are newer, you have to put an inordinate amount of effort to get things started. That's how business works. 0 to 1 is way harder than 1 to N or 1 to 2. All right. And like, it's why I make so much content around this, because it's like, it just blows in the beginning. There's no real way around it. It just sucks. Like your content gets no views and people don't respond to you and your stuff's not, and the real reason is because your stuff's not that good. Your stuff's just not that good. Like, and you got to be okay with that. It can't be like the world is unfair. These people have some secret. No, it's just like they stuck with it. You just have to stick with it. Like one of my favorite tweets of all time is the world belongs to those who can keep working without seeing the results of their doing. Right? It's like you just have to keep doing without seeing the result. You have to be able to delay gratification. And then everybody's going to ask you afterwards, like, why is it so easy? It must be easy for you to say because you've got a 10 million person audience. Yeah, because I fucking built it. Right? Like, yeah. And it started at 0 like everybody else. So anyways, I say that as a pause. Now, what is the Rule 300? Okay. So basically the rule of, it's the Rule of 100 that I talk about in my book, right? The $100 million leads. And so this is just specific. It's kind of a blend of outreach and content. Okay. So basically you spend your 100 minutes a day on making a post. So make a post. All right. And I wanted to do the 100 minutes a day because I want it to be good. I'd rather you really try and spend some time to like make it good. You'll grow a lot faster if it just doesn't suck. All right. So you just move the curve forward by it not sucking. So number 1 is you post. Number 2 is you do the outreach. Now the outreach goes in this order. First, you reach out to people who commented on your post. Second, you reach out to people who liked your post. Third, you reach out to people who are either in a group that you're in. And there's sub caveat here is that your content piece, you can also post inside of groups. So you can double it. So you can make a public post. So let's say I post on my LinkedIn. Actually, does LinkedIn have groups? I don't even know. I have no idea. Anyways, yeah, let's assume they have groups. And then within LinkedIn, the group that I'm in that's relative to my niche, I also make that post there. Because what's interesting about groups is that in groups, you're just competing against everyone else in the group more so than competing against everyone else on the platform. So it basically makes the pond smaller and makes the pond more relevant. And so if you're making stuff for moms and you post on Instagram, you're competing against me. But if you make stuff for moms and you put it into a mom's group, I'm not in that group or other people who are professional content creators. And so then you'll have a higher likelihood you're competing against other moms. And so you might win, right? And so you have a higher likelihood of winning. Now, again, inside of the group, You can DM the people who liked, you can DM the people who commented. Now, once you've done that, you can do that across multiple groups, by the way, right? Now, to be clear here, you don't want to get kicked out of groups. You don't want to be a dick. You want the content to be fucking good. That's the big thing that makes this work. All right. And you want to, if you can, get permission from the host. And I would say if you're new to a group, don't do the DMs for the first like 2 or 3 weeks. Talk to the person who's running the community. And if you get the green light, then kind of follow through there. Okay. So just if you're like, okay, can you recap that? You post publicly, you comment, you DM the likes, you DM the comments. That's public shit. Private shit inside of groups, you do that for basically have a time delay. Wait 21 or 30 days of you gaining authority and notoriety within that community, get permission, and then you can start doing that stuff, and you can even work out a deal with the guy who owns the community. Okay? That's the second part. The third part is that here's the big sexy one. You comment on other people's stuff. All right? You comment, and it's 100 comments. And here's the objective, is that you want to comment so that your comment is the best comment. Again, what we're trying to do here is we're actually just trying to shrink the pond. And so if you think about the ponds, like obviously when you post publicly, you're in the ocean, right? You're posting to the ocean, you're shouting to the ether. But when you post inside of a group, it's a pond. When you comment on somebody else's post, even like if you comment on my post, right? If you comment on my post, it's just limited to the pond of people who commented on my post. So you're only going to have 100, 200, 300 people you're competing against, not 2 billion, right? So we narrow it and make it smaller. And so you want to have the top post. Now, when you have the top post, guess what you get to do? Message anybody who likes your comment. Message anybody who responds to your comment. Same way. So think about the comments as mini posts that you make on someone else's, and you just ride the coattails of the already performing content. That's how you have to think about it. So it's like you're just kind of like piggybacking on the content post from somebody else, ideally in your niche or audience, or who advertises your niche or audience, so that you can ride along, right? And again, you can DM the people who interact with your thing. Don't DM their people. That'll just make everybody hate you. So don't do that. It also probably won't work. So DM the people who have engaged with your thing or respond to it. Between all of those sources that I just went through, you should probably be able to hit 100. Now, the last bucket that you can hit is people who you are loosely connected to. And so most people have email, people they've met, they have friends or subscribers or followers on every platform. Even if you've got like, I only have 200 Facebook friends. Well, that's 200. That's not like 0. You're currently doing nothing, right? You've got 400 people on your cell phone. You've got like, these are all people and you're like, oh, I'm ashamed of reaching out. Well, that's why you'll stay poor. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, if you're ashamed of reaching out to tell people about the thing that you have who know you, I don't know, get over it. I mean, you can reach out to strangers, it's just harder. But if you're like, I'd rather be rejected by a stranger than somebody warm, then fine. Just accept the fact that you're going to reach out to 10 times more people. All right. But either way, this is the process that we are taking the 100 through. And the whole point here is we're just trying to narrow the ponds so that you guys can get more reach faster. Okay. Now, I will hit on this again because it is Andrew and I had weird. Ugh, I feel like a cat hair. Kirby and I had a conversation about this, and yeah, Jesse, exactly right. Who? We had a conversation I think is very relevant for everybody here as a beginner. All right, so please turn on your volume. Please pay complete attention to what I'm about to say. Most of y'all's lead magnets suck. And most of y'all are trying to make scalable, not valuable lead magnets. You're so obsessed with how you can get to 1,000 people that you forget your first 10. So, by the way, Hemming Hugh, who's one of the top guys in the 100, all right, former Olympian, all right, so he's got an Olympic work ethic, which many of you guys don't have, all right, which you should, but you don't, but he does, is he was struggling to monetize his ping pong community, okay? And so he joined the 100, and this is what we did. We told him to give away 3 hours to 5 hours of his time to anybody who asked for it. Now, if you're like, wait a second, how is this going to work? How can I give away 5 hours of my time? You don't even have leads yet. Hush. You literally won't do a solution because of the problem that you don't have that you think it will generate. And that problem, by the way, is a good problem. If one of you guys runs out of time because you're talking to too many prospects, fuck off. Sorry, I'm like my my GAF-ometer today is low. Okay, so it's on the weather, the thermometer of the day. Today it's low. It's low. It's not a very breezy day. I'm all out of Fs. I'm all out. I looked in my pockets. I ran out. I got none. I don't have any right now. All right. So most of you guys are trying to give away stuff that is not valuable. And you're trying to convince people that it's valuable. Look, here we go. He was doing $660 a month. And he went to 5K a month. And what he did, this is what he did. He gave away his time, one-on-one. Guess what's crazy about this? Guess what's crazy about giving away one-on-one time? You don't need to bonus stack it because people already know it's valuable. Like minimum wage work has value. Like in the United States, I think minimum wage is like $7. All right. So 7 times 5 is $35 of real cost. People know that has cost. And if you have any expertise layered on top of that, now it's like, call it $25 or $50 an hour times 5. It's $250. If you say, hey, who would like $250 of actual money? You will get people to respond. But guess what you get to do when you spend 5 hours with someone one-on-one or 3 hours with someone one-on-one? You get to learn about their problems. You get to talk to them and actually provide value rather than just trying to be like, you should read my PDF. It's like, no one cares. No one gives a shit about your PDF. It probably sucks. I say this out of love because I remember looking at one of my first presentations I ever gave for Gym Launch, and I remember being so proud of it. And I look at it now, and it is so laughable. It's humiliating. It's ridiculous. I thought that this was valuable. It's literally the first presentation I had is Arial font, white background, and just like bullets, like 2 or 3 bullets per slide, 0 visuals. And it's just like word vomiting. And there was like 30 slides for the presentation. And I was like, and this took me 2 days, like, to come up with this thing. Right. And compared to the quality of the presentation that I make now, it's ridiculous. But the thing is that you feel like it's valuable because of the inputs, because of how much effort you put into it, not because of how ultimately valuable it is. And so I thought it was way more valuable than it was. And so there's this big discrepancy between what you think and what the market thinks. The fact that no one is responding to your lead magnets and your offers is not because the world is fair. It's because it's incredibly fair and you just are unaware. You don't know what's going on. You are living in a distorted reality. And you think you're entitled to it, and you're not. You think you're entitled to their time. You think you're entitled to their clicks. You think you're entitled to their money, and you're not. So you have to give more in the beginning. And not only do you have to give more, you have to give extra more. Like to be competitive, you'd have to give the same as everybody else, but you're brand new and you have no proof. You have to give even more than other people do to kind of like reverse the inertia. You have to like get liftoff. You have to do stuff that's so crazy that no one would believe it. I can't believe he's giving this much stuff away. And again, the stuff that I can do now, you can't do. So I'm not saying do what I do because I have a different context than you. If you have 2 international best-selling books, if I said I was giving away my 3rd book for free as a PDF, I'll bet you I would get a lot of opt-ins for it. And if you do it, you won't. Why? You just forgot to write 2 million copy bestsellers. Besides that little detail, you're good. You're totally fine, except for that detail. And so I'm bringing this up because I want you to win. I want you to win. I know I'm being harsh right now. I know I'm being like a little bit rougher than I normally am, but I want you to win. And my hope is that you book out. My hope is that you have 5 people that you take on for 5 hours of work. That means 5 hours every day, 5 days in a row that you're working with them to help them. And what do you do at the end of 5 days? You ask them, would you like to work with me long-term? And by the way, on the first day, you say, hey, at the end, would you mind if I talked to you about what it would look like for us to work long-term together, doing the same stuff we're doing now? Yes. And guess what you do in those 3 to 5 hours? You basically make an incredibly complex plan and you overcome their concerns. And then what do they do after that? They're like, shit, I don't want to do all that work. And you're like, right, want my help? That's what we do. Now, if you're like, how do I don't want all these Tom, Dick, and Harry tire kickers. I don't want all these people who are who are going to waste my time. Of course, your time's so valuable. You're not making any money, but I'm sure it's very valuable, right? By the way, you're getting free practice on people. You don't have to pay them. They're literally coming to you so you can practice on getting better. Because if you actually saw yourself as the asset and the skills as the thing you develop and that what you're investing in, then you wouldn't have this entitled idea of how the world should work. Everyone should come to me. They're wasting my time. Your time has no value until the market pays you for it. It has zero value. Anyways, the way that you prevent against that is that you create qualifications. So if you help dentists, don't give 5 hours away to somebody who's not a dentist. And so here's the thing, you can make it free, but you have to qualify. You have to qualify to get it free. See, there's some balloons. That's the AI recognizes, game recognized game. All right. So again, it's I'm trying to keep the serious tone here. It's free. It's free if you meet the qualifications. All right. So if you deal with auto dealerships, you got to own a fucking auto dealership in order to get my free thing. But think about this. What would you be willing to do to spend 5 hours with a qualified prospect? Would you give 5 hours for that? If your time, let's say you currently make $50,000 a year, all right, divided by 8,600, that's how many hours are in a year. Let's see, did I say 50,000? What's that said? I say 50,000? Divided by 8,600 hours, you make $5.80 an hour. That's what your time's worth, okay? So you're like, that includes my sleeping time. It's time. So guess what happens? If you can make money while you sleep, it can cost while you sleep too. That's the other side people don't talk about. Anyways, so if it costs you $5.80 and you give 5 hours, would you pay $30 for a shot to close 1 out of 3 people on a $3,000 thing? Yeah. I mean, unless you're dumb, in which case, then yeah, nothing's going to work. But if you're not dumb, right? If you have both brain cells and they can rub them together so you can make fire, get some friction going, right? If you have both those, that's a phenomenal return. But the thing is you're paying with the thing you have most right now, which is time, not the thing you have least of, which is money. So pay with what you got. First rule of entrepreneurship, use what you have. You have time. Make time your offer. That's the unscalable valuable offer. Work for free. But instead of saying, I will work for free, say, I will work with you for 5 hours. I promise you, you will get people who will take you on that offer. As long as the people we're talking to actually have the problem that you're trying to solve. Okay? Now, again, you can start there and someone says, yes, I'm interested. And you say, hey, just to qualify, you have to do these 3 things, which is you have to be a gym owner, you have to have a leash, you have to have an employee. If they don't have that, it's like, oh, awesome. You should check out my free grip. Wait, we got somebody to engage on a crazy lead magnet. And then we just sent them into our free community where they could get nurtured. Crazy. Isn't this nuts? This stuff is wild. This is crazy science. Kirby, get out of here. What is this? This is too good for children. All right. Okay. Back to questions. Save the children. All right, Aaron. What do you want? Aaron Hilligoss. All right. How would you come up? By the way, if you're new here, I purposely mispronounce all names. That's my control. Like if your name's John Smith, I might say Jaha Smythe. It's part of the charm. All right. So, Aaron, how would you come up with a product if you have a decent audience of about 900K views on long form content? Okay. Yeah, I mean, Coach Trudy kind of nailed that one. I would ask them. I would just serve them and I would say, hey, I've got 3 things I want to give you guys. I get hundreds of comments every day. Like I'm thinking 1, 2, or 3. Which would you guys be so jacked that you'd get out of bed early in order to be one of the first ones? All right. Put the bar a little higher than just say interested, but you put a little survey, get them to vote on it. And the thing is that I'm looking at this, Aaron, is I want to look at, these are the metrics. This goes for everybody. So I'm gonna zoom out, a little serious business hat for a second. Number 1 is you want to look at percentage conversion of the audience. All right. So if I show this to everybody in my audience, what percentage would this convert? As in like, if I have a 30% business owner audience, 70% business aspiring audience, then if I have a business insurance product, then automatically I'm only gonna have 30% it even applies to. All right. So you want to know that's the total market that I can actually even sell this to. Now, of that 30%, what percentage of them might convert? Okay, so I have that area under the curve. Now, from there, what's the average unit? Like, how much do I make in gross profit? And so fundamentally, when I look at monetizing any audience, I look at percentage conversion times lifetime gross profit over the lifetime. That's it. That's all I look at. And so what you might find is like, wait, but isn't the majority of my strategy to just go find a couple of companies? It's because I can make enough from a few companies that it actually offsets anything else that I would sell. I just go super, super here. That's just my strategy, right? And so don't be afraid of lower numbers is basically my point. And I would say that's kind of a universal theme that I'll tell you just around school in general is that, like, if you can find a way to provide more value, do that so that you can charge more. Like, you will have to, it's much easier to sell 100 people a $10,000 thing than 10,000 people a $100 thing. Much easier. Okay, especially if limited resources. All right, Hemming Hugh. See, there's proof. Here's real life proof. There's Hemming. Hemming, shout out in the chat so people know what's going on. Yeah, but Aaron, just figure out if you have 3 products, figure out the one that makes the most money. So, for example, I had a guy who's a comedian who talked to me the other day, big follower, like 7 million plus, and he says, I'm coming out with a card game, right? And I was like, I like the margins on the game. The problem is that it's not reoccurring. I want something that's consumable. I want something that people have to keep buying. Now, if you had a plan of like adding booster packs and things like that, I think that could be maybe interesting. But the question is, what is the game consumption? Like, how often are people playing games together? I don't know, right? And so that's a consideration, right? I would rather have something where I get more people to consume it more regularly, right? And so that's what you have to think through is like, how do I get more people to consume this? Okay, current situation, at capacity with members of my paid community. That's amazing. Problem, not enough money to hire anyone. Okay, this is a price, dude. This is a price issue. This is a pricing thing, my man. Pricing. So everybody, Econ 101, supply demand. That's why. Hold on. We're gonna go Superman on you. Uh-oh. Inside the logo. Do you guys know what the 2 components of this logo are? I'll tell you. Supply demand and leverage. This is a fulcrum. That's where the triangle comes in. It's a lever. Those are the 2 things that I care about most in business. Where do I have leverage and what's supply demand? Okay. So you have a supply demand thing, which means you have very little supply and you have demand. What does that mean? Price goes up. Means your price got to go up. And if you sold people, then you're like, okay, what do I do? What do I do now? Right? Now you're going to have natural churn that's going to occur. That's fine. And basically with the people that churn out, you sell higher people to fill them up. And you just keep redoing that process until you can have enough space to hire somebody else to help you out. Now, for most of you guys, there's basically 2 paths that you can scale with. There's really 3. I don't want to get like too into it, but one is you go more fractionalized. So Hemming, instead of doing one-on-one, because now you've gotten the skill of marketing and sales, you've gotten that down, right? A little bit, right? So now you have to sell the same thing you currently are, but sell 1-on-4 or sell 1-on-6. Now, if you do that, you immediately 6x your capacity and 6x your income without changing the price. You could also pair that with a price change, and you get 6x or 10x your income. So for almost everybody here, you want to do this in steps. First, get to capacity. Then you'll have conviction when you say, listen, I just don't have any space. You're willing to say no to money. And I can promise you one rule of money in life is that the moment you can actually say no to money is when you will start making more money than you know what to do with. You have to be willing to say no to money because you say no to low money so you can make high money. You have to make room for bigger money to come. All right. So Hemming, supply demand, raise price as churn hits, keep going. I would bet you that the best move is selling 1-on-4 rather than 4xing your price. If I had to bet, if I had to make a bet right now, I would do that play first. Yeah. So to your question, I would get more efficient at what you're delivering. All right. Mr. Alex. Hello, Harut. Currently at the top 5 of the 100. Cool. We did 10K and 97 product on 40K and 40K from 5K upsells in 31 days. Okay, great. Would you go in on the 5K offer and sell that only, or still have the $97 upsell? All of this depends. Yeah, so you're getting closer. Should I just look at LTV to yeah. So basically, no, it's not a bad question. So it comes down to does the low ticket feed the high ticket? And subset, what's LTV to CAC between the two? So if you can acquire more customers profitably with the 97 and then upsell them into 5K, then you should do that. If you are more profitable on the front end acquiring straight into 5K, then you should do that. So it's really just looking at which one can I convert to cold traffic. And if you can go straight to 5, amazing. Many people need a little bit of nurture, especially if you're starting out. And so sometimes low to high works better. But if you can go straight to high, then go straight to high. Okay. TJ Copel. I'm going to have a sip of Gatorade. One moment, please. Okay. I feel like I'm writing scripts. I feel like when I'm writing scripts, we're just doing outreach traffic. I feel like that isn't delivering on my community. How do I balance both in the calendar full-time school? So you're saying when you're trying to get more customers, you feel like you're not delivering on your existing customers? I mean, that's true. And when you're delivering on customers, you're not getting new customers. And when you're on the toilet, you're doing neither. Depending, unless you do DM on the toilet, in which case you'd be multitasking. And if you listen to music while you're doing it, then you'd be tritasking. So there's many, many channels of expansion here. But I think, dude, you just got to get over it. Like, I mean, I don't think that's fundamentally boil it down to metrics. What is the constraint of the business? If more people need to know about it, then the constraint is advertising. Now, once you're on the inside, if churn becomes such a big deal that everyone leaves immediately after, then churn becomes a constraint of the business. And so then you reallocate more attention there. But fundamentally, just look at the metrics and break down the behaviors that move the metrics. And so if you posting a few times a week and maybe commenting back on people's posts that they tag you in or whatever is something that retains them, which I'll bet it would, then know that that's probably the strongest delineator. If it takes, again, this is the question the requirements, delete, whatever, like the whole process outline. If you commenting on people's stuff inside your community generates more retention than you posting and takes less time, then do more comments and fewer posts. And so this is for everyone. Again, it's like we just have to look at where we're spending our time and what we get for what we spend. And if you're like, I'm not sure, then this is where you test. You say, I just did posts for a while and my churn went through the roof, which I'll bet it would. And I just did comments on people's posts for a while and my churn was actually really good. Then I'll bet you the comments on the post is actually more material. So then do that. And I'll bet you this, if you do comment on more people's posts, you'll be able to copy your 6 comments and probably string them together into one post and just post them afterwards. Because you'll start seeing themes. You'll get a better pulse on what's going on within the community. All right. So that's the big ugly. John Felice, do you have a good framework or protocol for quickly identifying biggest constraint? Yes. What is stopping me from 10xing my business? Like, what stops me? The answer to that question is the constraint. And if it's like, well, I'd have 4 things that break, then decrease it to double. What stops me from doubling my business? You keep going down until you find one thing that's actually stopping you. Then that's the constraint. All right. My friends, family, countrymen, lend me your clicks. I bid you adieu. I will see you guys next Monday, same time, same place. I didn't do any sexual innuendo this time. I'm so sorry. I forgot. I will weave it into the next one. Early, hot, and spicy. All right. Keep being great. And if it hurts when you pee, take an antibiotic. Bye.